bushes right behind Hilltop Cottage. If I were to have planted fruit trees or bushes, it would definitely be back here. You didn't notice them last year. Matthew was just doing some trimming on some of the edges and everything. He was cleaning up and he saw what he thought was raspberries, and then on a closer look, they are red, but they're not ripe yet. As they get ripe, they're turning black. They're blackberries. Come and see. I think in a few more days they might ripen, and if they do ripen, I'm gonna come out here with a basket and I'm gonna pick some berries before the bear does, that is. Although we probably get a lot of animal visitors back here because of that. So I'm looking forward to picking some berries. I was a little sad that the tree fell down right here. There was a dead tree. It was dead. It needed to come down anyway. But when it fell on the house, it actually left quite a good opening to see the view. So I've been seeing the sunset. Only thing is, it's definitely sunnier on this side of the building now, and the tea room gets super hot without the shade. My only sad regret about that storm is that this giant, beautiful pine tree fell between our house and the cottage next door. And I didn't realize how much privacy that tree provided, but now our houses, the windows face each other from a distance, but still you could see each other from the driveway now where you couldn't before. And I didn't quite realize until the tree was gone just how much privacy that tree gave us. If I were to buy the property, I would definitely plant another beautiful tree there. Probably not a pine, but maybe something flowering like a magnolia. Let me get comfy here. I like sitting in the grass. I don't do it enough. I just need to touch the ground and connect with nature. Whew. I had a full work day. I say that every time I come on here, but I did. And so I'm trying to come up with ways to really romanticize summer for my friends like myself who work full-time jobs. And you get like maybe an hour of sunlight if you're lucky after work. What can you do to romanticize these summer days while they're here? I know that one of the best ways to slow down time is to be present, which I know is really hard, especially when you're working, you're on autopilot, you're trying to get things done, you're checking off your to-do lists. But being present helps slow things down. Little micro moments, I talk a lot about micro moments with my friends throughout the day to have joy. I've heard it called glimmers before. So maybe a little glimmer or a micro moment of happiness. It could be having a favorite healthy snack, listening to a favorite song, going for a 5-minute walk outside or around the office, or just stepping up from your desk and doing a little mini workout, some stretches. It could be having a cup of tea. I know I love a cup of green tea. It helps me kind of center myself when I'm facing a stressful work day. And so having those moments, but also having some novelty really does help slow down time. And novelty, it doesn't mean anything, it doesn't have to be exciting. It just has to be new and different and break away from your routine a little bit. So mixing up your routine in some way. And the other day I had a little tea party on my lunch break. It was raining outside and I was like, you know what, I'm home alone. I worked really hard. I had so many projects and meetings left to do for the day, but I took my full lunch break. It's very important. I don't get paid for my lunch break, so I'm not going to work through it. So I took off my lunch break and I made myself a little tea party. And so I've decided I think I'm going to keep doing that on my lunch break if I can. I do that actually if I work at the office too. For my lunch break, I'll have a picnic blanket in my car, I'll pack my lunch, and I'll go to a local park just right down the road, or a patch of green grass right near the office. I'll go for little walks around town. I'll pop into the Hickory Stick bookshop. I will go on the hiking trails by the river and read. And so try to mix up your routine a little bit. And I don't know, it's just so important to take care of yourself this way. And it is self-care, right? You know, we're all busy, whether we're working hard at an office, we have a job, we're a laborer, tradesmen, whatever it is that we do, stay-at-home moms, gosh, you work so hard. So whatever your occupation is or your job is in any shape or form, I know that you're giving it your all, and you're probably not giving enough to yourself. So it's summer. I hope that you take that time for yourself. You deserve it. You need it. It's good for you. It's not selfish. A lot of people say, oh, it's good to be selfish once in a while. I don't like the word selfish. It's negative. It's not a negative thing. Self-care is important. It's not selfish. It's a necessity. So take care of yourself. Find some joy today, and we're going to romanticize summer together. So I hope you will join me. And thanks again so much for visiting Hilltop Cottage. I'm so grateful that you are here. You are wonderful. You deserve happiness. You deserve joy today. And you deserve a beautiful, happy, lovely summer. The sun is going down and it's actually getting a little chilly. But check this out. I have tomatoes in the garden. I just peeked in the garden and they are perfectly ripe and ready for picking. Oh my goodness, yes. Oh, look at all these ones coming in. You are perfect. You're perfect. These ones do not turn red. These are yellow tomatoes. Yellow, well, orange. They're probably more orangey. But this one's ready. And this one is ready. Ooh, this one actually split. It's more than ready. My gosh, how did I not see that one hidden in there? Okay, that one will be ready probably in another day. But all these tomatoes coming in, and my green beans too. Look at these. Beautiful. I just got back to Michael's craft store. It feels like every time I share things on my YouTube channel, I'm at Michael's, but really I only come here like maybe 6 times a year. It's because I have a lot of art supplies at home already, but sometimes I get a craft or a home project that I need to do and there's something I'm looking for, and I'd rather get it from the store than get it from like Amazon. I love Michael's Crafts. They have a really good reward system. So I'm going to be making a painting for the guest room this afternoon. It's an idea I found online, and I'm not going to be copying the artist I found, but I am deeply inspired by it, the style, and the colors are similar because those are actually the colors of my guest room. So I'll show you more about it, but first I got to get a nice good size canvas. I have some canvas at home but not big enough, so I'm going to get a couple of paint colors and a big canvas. Got my canvas. It's in the back seat of the car. I also got some paints and some supplies actually for what is it called? What is it? I can't remember what it's called. It's not a lithograph. It's kind of like when you carve your own stamps. The word is escaping me right now, but I got some carving supplies so I can make my own rubber stamps and blocks, there we go, for block printing. And so I'm also across the street from the Goodwill. I think I'm gonna stop in because I'm looking for a little lamp for the guest room as well. We've been using the one in the dining room, and when we have guests over, we just grab that one and plug it in there. But it would be nice if the guest room actually had its own light. There's no light in there at all, except for in the closet. So I think I'm gonna take a peek and then go home and start some painting. I didn't find what I was looking for, which is okay, because Goodwill is always hit or miss. any thrift shop is. But when I do go to like Goodwill or any thrift stores, I'm always looking for items that I'm needing for the house so that I could thrift them instead of buying new. Things like right now, I'm looking for, as I said, a little lamp. I'm looking for more chairs for our dining room table, a small bookcase, and I always look at the dishes to see if they have any beautiful sets of dishes that are on my wish list. I like crystal and glassware, vintage Christmas cups that are just adorable, beautiful wooden frames I always look for. What else? Sometimes I browse the books, once in a while the clothes, but I'm not really buying a lot of clothes right now, so yeah, I'm just looking for items that I need for the house, and if I don't see them, I don't just buy anything. I'm very intentional even when I thrift. What are you doing up there? You might be wondering why I'm set up to paint in the guest room. There's two reasons. One, it's starting to rain outside, and two, I wanted to paint in the guest room where I am because of the light. This painting is going to go on the wall right above the bed, so I'm drawing inspiration from items in the room, like, I don't know, my sun hats, the pillows I have, the bow tie decorations, and so I'm just really excited to get this idea out because I've had it for such a long time. Just put my hair up here, get it out of the way. There we go. So it's going to be kind of like a patchwork quilt, and I'm going to do, I believe it's 30 by 40, this board, so I'm going to do 5 by 5 inch squares. I believe that would probably be the most beautiful. I might put it on the floor to measure it out first. Madeline's in here with me. She's just watching. She doesn't know what's happening. Are you confused, Miss Madeline? Yeah, you sweet girl. So this painting is inspired by a painter called Celeste Clark. She's someone I follow on Instagram, and so I saw her make a painting like this, I think it was a year ago, and I just loved the idea of the squares. It reminded me of a quilt. And so while I definitely don't want to copy her, I'm very inspired by her, and I want you to know her name. It's Celeste Clark. And I'm kind of using that same square method to create somewhat of like a quilt type painting, and I am going to use florals and similar colors to hers because those are actually the colors of the guest room, which are green and pink. And that's actually what the painting is, and it made me think of this room. So I'm going to be making kind of like a quilt painting using objects like, for example, these sheets I just bought for the guest beds have these beautiful bow tie designs. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the green gingham based on the pillows I have in here. Little bows based on details I have, and then flowers because I love flowers. So I want to do lilac, lavender, roses. I grabbed these roses here so I'd have some visual inspiration. These beautiful little dainty pink roses. So pretty. And I'm going to create kind of like a patchwork quilt that will be inspired by this room. So tough news, it is not exactly 30 by 40, it is slightly off. So I'm just going with it and making sure the measurements at least look even. And it's close enough where I don't think it's going to be a problem. artist study is when you copy somebody else's work by giving them credit as well, so that you could practice the style, the technique, and try to mimic the strokes and learn that way. A lot of people learn drawing and painting through mimicry or from painter studies or drawing studies of art that already exists. There's a fine line between that and plagiarism. Plagiarism is obviously when you copy something and you pass it off as your own. An artist study is not that. It is copying something to learn from it, and you give the artist proper credit. And that is why I want you to know Celeste Clark is the artist that invented this style, or at least maybe not invented the style. She was probably inspired by somebody else. And this is not an artist study. It's similar. I'm using a similar technique. I'm giving her credit, but I'm also kind of painting and doing my own thing with it. And so if you are learning to paint, it's a great way to learn is by copying what you see, but always, always, always give credit. Same with like videos and photos when you copy someone. I think a lot today with things being online, plagiarism is a problem. And so I'm very straightforward and honest about that as an artist myself, as a photographer. I like when people give me proper credit instead of just copying my work. So that's my little disclaimer before I get started. I have all the squares drawn out, and there's so many. I have to decide what I'm gonna put in each one. Time to think. For this project, I used patterns and inspiration from the guest room, bows and designs like my chair, my sun hats and candles, and even the flowers. Every decorating piece in this room added a little something to the inspiration. Okay, in my journal, I made a little sketch with all the squares. I'm calling it my quilt painting, and so I'm going to try to decide what designs to put in each one before I start painting and drawing it on there. Wow. Feeling proud of all these tomatoes. All of these tomatoes are from this week alone, and there's more in the fridge. But I'm excited to be able to freeze them for winter. I'm gonna have to find a way to organize this a little better, but there we go. I'm gonna make some sauces and chilies with them this winter. This summer, I also learned how to play Pickle Ball for the first time, and I think I found my new favorite sport next to badminton. Matthew and I have never played before. This was our very first time with my cousins and my nephew. It was so much fun. I just got home from summer camp, so I have some henna on my hand. I am a co-director of a summer camp for kids, art-based. We are a lot of time in nature, a lot of art classes, all kinds, from music and dancing to painting and weaving and drumming and hula hooping and circus. So yeah, there's a lot going on. I'm exhausted, but yeah, I'm not going to be filming anything this week or next. Too busy running around with kids, but I did the face paint today, and so I am a magical unicorn. So I am a flower unicorn. The kids picked it out. We couldn't decide between flowers or unicorn, so I'm a flower unicorn. But yeah, no, it's tough work actually. It's a lot of work, especially being in charge of 30 staff members and 130 children. Last year was 150, this year it's only 130, so it's a little better, but it's still chaos. And so, yeah, I'm tired, really tired, but the kids make it worth it. That's the best part about what I do, is being with the kids. And so, yeah, no, there's my face paint. I'm so tired. But yeah, I'll be back having fun, checking in with you all soon. Matthew and I are going to Prince Edward Island for vacation. We haven't been to vacation in like 2 years together, so this is going to be amazing. We're going away for a week right after camp ends. Yes, I did just come out of Barnes & Noble like this. I stopped in. I had to return a book. I accidentally bought the same book twice, so I returned it, and I got some fantasy books, and I'm really excited. I'm in such a reading kick, I can't stop reading. I know I said I wasn't going to film anymore because I am tired from camp, but I did go to Barnes & Noble after work this evening because I accidentally rebought a book I bought recently. So I bought it twice. I thought it was on my wish list, and no, I actually had brought it home. So when I bought it last week, I ended up having 2 copies on my bookshelf, and I was like, oh my gosh. So I wanted to return it quickly so that I didn't forget. And so there is a Barnes & Noble pretty close by. I usually go to one further away because it's a lot nicer and I feel safer there. It's just in a better area, and they have a much better like magazine selection and a larger romance section. But I went to the local one just because, again, I'm tired, and I got all these romanticy books. So when I'm saying this with the unicorn still on my face. When I was a kid, I loved reading books about fantasy. Some of them had a little bit of like a love story in them. And when I became a teenager, they definitely had love stories in them. It wasn't called romanticy back then. It was just fantasy books. And so I don't read a lot of YA books at all. I haven't read many in years, mostly because I'm in my mid-30s. It's not really fun or entertaining reading about teenagers in love, especially it gets awkward if it's like spicy stuff. It just feels uncomfortable reading about underage romances when I'm in my mid-30s. I like reading about characters that are my age, and I've actually always been like that. When I was younger, for example, when I was like 6 years old, I liked reading about books about other 6-year-olds. When I was 12, I liked reading books about kids that were also 12 in middle school. And then in high school, I read books about kids my own age. And all throughout my 20s and my 30s, And once in a while I read books about characters that are much younger, much older, but most of the books I read actually are the same age as myself. And so it is actually good to like get something new and do something different. And a really nice woman named Alyssa that works at Barnes & Noble helped me find a couple books. Some books on my list, I thought they were romance, but fantasy romance. So I thought they were in the fantasy section. I went in there and they weren't there. And that's because they were in the young adult section. But I've heard good things about them. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to jump into it. It's called Where the Dark Stands Still by A.B. Poranek. I hope I said her name right. It's like a fantasy world. There's a magical forest. She goes to pluck a plant for some sort of wish, I believe, and ends up having to sell her soul or something like that. I don't know exactly what happens. It is a romance and it's a slow burn, and I heard it's very wholesome. So and actually I'm looking forward to kind of tapping into my inner child or my inner teen and reconnecting with books that I used to read when I was younger. I loved reading fantasy books like about fairies and unicorns, and yes, I loved love stories. I didn't quite know they were romance back then. It was just love stories for me. But I love fantasy. And so I decided to give this one a try. And another one I heard, Darling Desi on Instagram had it. It's the Once Upon a Broken Heart series by Stephanie Garber. It's a #1 New York Times bestseller. It's a romance, it's fantasy, it's a series, and it's about a young girl, I guess, a young woman that the love of her life is marrying someone else, and she makes a deal with a demon to try to, I think, win him over, the immortal Prince of Hearts. All right, we are back. My camera was a little crooked and it was starting to fall. So anyway, where was I? Okay, so this one is the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. Again, another YA book. It's a series, there's 3. And I used to love reading series. I still do sometimes, but I don't read them as often. So it's kind of fun reconnecting with some fantasy series again. This one's about a fairy, and she's a changeling. And that's what the book that I liked when I was a teenager. Oh, I wish I could remember the name. I think it had the word iron in it. But anyway, it was about a young woman that was a changeling, and the fairies came back for her. And this one's a little different. She is a changeling and people know about it. And she was changed with the princess, so the queen still takes care of her, even though her daughter was stolen and replaced with this fairy changeling. And she raises her to become a spy to go back and rescue her real daughter. And she becomes friends, I think, with the prince. They become good friends and they travel together to save the real princess. But she's actually falling in love with her best friend, who is the prince, but he's betrothed to the real princess. And so this is their journey and travel through this magical forest and all these lands, trying to save the real princess. She's a fairy changeling. What could be more fantasy than that? I don't know, but it seems like the adult version of the book series I loved as a kid. This one's, I don't think, a series. It's a single book, but I've heard really good things. A few people have recommended it, and again, that's A Feather So Black. And while I was there, it was the buy one get one 50% off. So I did actually end up buying another one 50% off. I was like, well, I'm there. Let me pull the sticker off. The stickers do bother me, so I want to get those off right away. I'm a weirdo. I'm very particular about my books, especially like my paperbacks. I don't want things on them. I don't want them bent, the corners. I'm very protective of my books. Weird quirk. Maybe I'm not the only one. I think most book lovers would absolutely love it. Ooh, look, actually it says Fair Folk 1. Sorry, I was just looking at this one, A Feather So Black. So this is book 1. So I guess it is going to be a series. I was wrong, but book 1. And then this one's called The North Wind by Alexandria Warwick. And it's supposed to be kind of, it sounds kind of like Frozen, but for adults. But it says it's inspired by Beauty and the Beast and the myth of Hades and Persephone. This lush and enchanting enemies to lovers fantasy romance is perfect for fans of Sarah J. Maas, Jennifer L. Armentrout, and Scarlett St. Clair. It's about a magical land. These two sisters are together, again, very Frozen vibes for me. And they have to survive this winter. Their parents are gone. And she has this younger sister or half-sister. No, it's, I think, just sister. And they have to survive alone through the winter, but there's this, I guess, evil north wind that wants to, I think he's a god of some kind, god of the wind, that wants to marry and take away her younger sister. And she's very protective of her sister, and she ends up having to strike a deal with him, kind of a thing. There's a lot of like demons and gods and characters and deal making going on, and lots of enemies to lovers, I noticed, in like all of these. And I haven't read them, so I can't tell you what they're actually like. All I could tell you is what I've heard, and I'm probably wrong about half of it. So if I gave you a wrong description, that is why I haven't read them yet. And I realized I do share a lot of books I want to read with you, but then I never follow up and come back on this channel and say, oh, I read this and I loved it. I don't do that. And so I need to, because I read so many great books and I'm just obsessed with them. And so I think I need to talk to you about some of the books I've been reading. I need to make a book video. But anyway, this is a standalone enemies to lovers slow burn fantasy romance, sprinkled with Greek mythology, it says. So it's about a woman and the north wind. And then this one's not a fantasy. It's a romance. I read Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston when it came out, so 2020, and I loved it. It was something, it was like a balm, right? Maybe it was 2019. We're going back some time now, but it was a LGBTQ romance, and I don't know, it just, with the politics in the US at the time, it was just comforting. It was kind of like an alternate reality of what was going on in 2019. And I loved it, and I just enjoyed it. It was funny, it was thoughtful, it was deep, and the romance was just beautiful and loving and spicy, but really great. And so I saw her new book came out, The Pairing, and I don't know, and look at this. The beautiful, I don't know if you could see it, the beautiful edges. Ooh, some things taste better together, it says. But it was just beautiful, and there's like an Eiffel Tower and some champagne glasses on here. And I don't know, I just love the first book, that I felt like anything she writes is going to be amazing, so I wanted to read this one. And that completes the books that I bought today. I've been buying a lot of books lately, and I've definitely noticed there's a difference between buying books and reading books. They're both hobbies. They're both fantastic. They both feel good, but they're two different things. And I've definitely been buying more books than I've been reading books. I've been reading a lot, but I've been buying more than I've been reading. And so my book to read shelf is quite long. I think I'm going to have to prioritize books that I want to read before summer's over, and then the rest I could read in between. I'm a very seasonal reader. I think I've talked about it before, where I like reading the books that take place in that season most of the time. There are exceptions, but most of the time I read summery books in the summer, fall-themed books in the fall, wintry books in the winter, and definitely the spring books in the spring. It's the kind of reader I am. But I don't know, I love reading books, and I love reading a little bit of everything. I read a lot of nonfiction, a lot of psychology. My friend calls them, says that I'm obsessed with self-help, and they are self-help books, but it's just positive psychology is what it is. It's all like well-being books. I love those. And I've been reading children's classics, and even some other children's books that aren't classics, that are just new in series and exciting. And yeah, as I said, I don't read a lot of YA at all, young adult books. Just, it's hard for me to get into them. And you're probably wondering, how can I get into children's ones? And it's different, especially because if there's no like romance really in children's books. They're wholesome, they're creative, they're whimsical, they just bring you back to all those good childhood vibes. Teen books, young adult books could be very dramatic, very angsty, and sometimes very enjoyable, of course. There are so many great books, so many great authors in the YA genres, but as I said, it's just hard for me to relate to now that I'm in my mid-30s. But I'm not knocking those books at all. And of course, I talked that I bought 2 YA fantasy books. And so one's a standalone and one's a series. So I'm giving it another chance. I really am. And it kind of feels fun to connect with my inner teen. I've been connecting with my inner child with the kids' books a lot, reading children's classics and new children's books, really connecting with that fun, childlike, playful side, and finding that love of reading and that love of books again. It takes me back to when I would just read all summer long. And I don't know, it feels kind of fun reconnecting with that fantasy teen part of myself. I haven't really connected to my inner teen. I had a really hard time in my teen years with my family. Things were really bad growing up, and so I think I've kind of avoided that time period of my life and going back to that. But I want to connect, I guess, with my teen self a little bit and go back into that fantasy and when that time when I believed that all these wonderful magical things could happen. And that's why I'm reading fantasy again. I have one more book I want to share with you, and it's a book I'm reading right now. I didn't buy it tonight. I bought it a couple nights ago. I was at Target getting snacks for camp. I had to get a new hard drive for my photography editing and for video. And so I was actually near the checkout counter and they had this book 30% off, and it sounded really cool. And it's called The Spell Shop. And it was just pretty. It has the purple sides and it just seemed magical. It's not a YA book, I don't think. I think it's just any age. But I opened up the inside cover and this is what the jacket says. I didn't even read the whole thing before I bought it. I just was like, yep. It says, a lush cottagecore tale full of stolen spellbooks, unexpected friendships, sweet jams, and even sweeter love. Kiela has always had trouble dealing with people. Thankfully, as a librarian at the Great Library of Elysium, I hope I'm saying all these words right, Elysium, she and her assistant Kaz, a magically sentient spider plant, have spent the last decade sequestered among the Empire's most precious spellbooks, preserving their magic for the city's elite. And that's all I read. There's more. But first, I know she's a librarian, and I worked at a library. I love books. Already, you're winning me over here. It says a lush cottagecore tale. Love cottagecore. Spell books. I was all about spell books. All about it when I was younger. I still like them. And then it says sweet jams and even sweeter love. I'm learning to make jam soon, so it just sounded intriguing and sweet. And again, it's a love story and there's fantasy and magic here. And then there's a live plant. This plant is alive and living. As you can see, I love plants. And I have a spider plant upstairs that's quite big. But the spider plant's name is Kaz. And I went to a school called Cazenovia College. And its nickname was Kaz. I'm going to Kaz. And it went out, it's weird saying out of business. It closed last year. After almost 200 years, the university closed. They had some money problems and the pandemic made it worse. But that place was just my happy place. It was my home. I loved being there 4 years of college and I was so sad to leave. And it's this beautiful village. And the college was this gorgeous little liberal arts college. And so just instantly, the name Kaz brought in all the good feels. But yeah, so it goes on to say, when a revolution begins and the library goes up in flames, heartbreaking. It happens in the first chapter. I read the first chapter before bed, and yeah, the library burns down. There's a warning for you there. That's not giving away, I'm not giving away stuff. It's right in the description. and it happens right away. So I will let you know, it's heartbreaking, but it happens. But they flee. She and Kaz flee with all the spell books they can carry and head to the remote island Kiela never thought she'd see again, her childhood home. Taking refuge there, Kiela discovers, much to her dismay, a nosy and very handsome neighbor who can't take a hint and keeps showing up day after day to make sure she's fed and to help fix up her new home. In need of income, Kiela identifies something that even the bakery in town doesn't have, jam. With the help of an old recipe book her parents left her and a bit of illegal magic, her cottage garden is soon covered in ripe berries. Cottage garden! I've got one of those. But magic can do more than make life a little sweeter. So Kiela risks the consequences of using unsanctioned spells and opens the island's first ever and much needed secret spell shop. Like a Hallmark rom-com full of mythical creatures and fueled by cinnamon rolls and magic, the spell shop will heal your heart and feed your soul. I need a little bit of that right now, don't you? And so this is the one I'm reading right now. I'm only one chapter in. I was so tired, I only read one chapter and then I fell asleep. But I'm going to eat dinner now, and then I'm going to read more of this, and then I'll have to figure out which one of these I'm reading next. But I will follow up sometime, probably in the fall, with all the wonderful fantasy and romance books. So yeah, I'm excited. Lots of reading. I feel like I'm in touch with my younger self when summer is just all about books and summer reading. So happy reading. See you soon.